Welcome, everybody, to the Wynncraft Podcast, where we will be discussing anything and everything Wynn. I'm here joined by my co-host Lou, and with us today we have a special guest, none other than the lead designer behind the ability tree and a great composer of many of Wynncraft's soundtracks. I'm of course talking about XavierEXE. Welcome, Xavier. How are you doing today? It's been a while.
I'm doing pretty good. I'm happy to be here. I got very little sleep, but the show must go on.
So let's start off by talking some ability tree stuff. First of all, how come you landed the role as the lead designer of the ability tree?
So when 2.0 first came out, Salted was in charge of most of the ability tree designing, and the entire item team helped out here and there. And the cycle for like getting balance changes through in the patches for the ability tree was a little slow at first because everything had to go through Salted, and Salted has to manage so many other things for Wynn. And so it meant that like big changes that required a lot of development time, and then small changes like we're going to increase the range of this by 1, kind of took the same amount of time to get approved and then move forwards in the development cycle. And so going into the Blizzard Festival patch for which is the first one that I managed for Assassin, Salted basically gave me a trial where I had been one of the ones that was working on a lot of the balance for abilities at that point already. And he was like, I'm going to let you take the lead on this. We'll see how it goes and move forwards from there. Reception on that update was really good. And so now here I am continuing with that.
How has it gone so far as a lead developer or designer?
I think it's been great. I'm enjoying it a ton. It's super fun. It's really interesting, and I feel like I'm learning a lot. I've learned a lot about game design just from like randomly like getting a chance to be a part of Wynncraft, and it feels good getting to apply it and give back to the community and hopefully make things better, because as amazing as 2.0 was conceptually when it first released, I think a lot of the archetypes feel like they just had holes missing in their kits, and I want to make things feel more fluid and more balanced and more exciting, and help people like live out the fantasy they expect to have from the class they choose and the archetypes they choose to spec into.
So let's get into sort of the nitty and gritty of what you do. How does the process of coming up with new abilities go? Where do you get inspiration from, for example?
Inspiration can come from anywhere. I read suggestions from the community. I get suggestions from other people on the content team. I get ideas from how other games handle similar scenarios. I get inspiration when I'm in the shower, because of course.
Like we all do.
Yeah, naturally. So when I'm actually trying to come up with like a new ability for an archetype, I'm usually trying to solve a problem that I or usually multiple people have identified. Like I'll go into this and be like, there's a problem that I'm trying to solve, and how can I solve this in a way that also makes everything mesh together cleanly and it feels like it belongs in the kit. I think Sacred Surge is probably a good example, which is the new like damaging ability for Paladin that came out in 2.0.3.
Yeah.
The design philosophy I had behind Sacred Surge was, we have a couple problems with Paladin's kit. It lacks damage, which you could solve by just buffing some things, increase the numbers, but it also lacked, in my opinion, it lacked interactivity, where you're playing Paladin and it doesn't really become much more than base warrior with a ton of passives that you don't really have to do anything to interact with. You get increased defense, you get regeneration, you get Manicism, which is great, but like Manicism, rejuvenation, or rejuvenating skin are both just take damage. You get mantles and you take damage and you take less damage. And it's all just things that happen. And so I wanted to kill two birds with one stone with Sacred Surge by designing an ability that both helped give Paladin some more offensive power, but I wanted to tie that offensive power specifically to the the passives it already had and make it feel like it was something that could have been there from the beginning, rather than being added later. So now there are scenarios where you will actually want to think about these defensive passives like Rejuvenating Skin and Manicism, which activate by taking damage. You might intentionally want to run in and tank some extra hits in order to charge Sacred Surge faster in order to do more damage. And that gives the gameplay loop of Paladin something unique that the other archetypes for Warrior don't have.
Yeah. And
it helps just give the archetype more of an identity, and also the goal was to fix both of those issues that I had identified, and I think it's a good step towards doing that.
But do you feel happy with the changes you've done to Paladin already, or would you want to keep working on it? Like
Paladin
adding more things?
Paladin, I definitely want to add more to, because in 2.0.3, dev time always limited, and the main focuses on the ability tree on the development side were all of Archer, because the entire tree got remade, and then Ritualist for Shaman. And so Paladin was the next archetype that I really wanted to work on, and I felt was like really falling behind in viability. Like, everything is viable. You can play solo Paladin, you'll do just fine. But it didn't feel like it had that much of an identity to itself. And so I wanted to get in, like, what was the one thing I could push forwards as soon as possible that would help Paladin the most in the short term? And out of all the things that I've planned for it, that was Sacred Surge, which tied in all these passives to give it something like a new resource to consider in combat, and helped with the offensive gap that it had.
I mean, it's definitely one of the coolest abilities that I've seen added since 2.0. I like the whole like divine sort of thunder striking down. It's very fitting to the name, of course.
But
like, okay, we talked a bit earlier about, you know, where you get your inspiration and such. And you said, you know, just like going about randomly in your day, which, I mean, I can attest to that being a factor when coming up with video ideas, right? Have you considered do you carry around a notebook? Because I for example, right, I always have a notebook in my bag when I go to school, because like I'm just gonna sit there randomly and be like, oh, this is gonna be a great video, or this is a title, or a good thumbnail I gotta draw some ideas for. Have you thought about do you keep notes on you?
I don't have a notebook I keep with me. I have a virtual notebook called my cell phone, and I will just take notes if I if I have an idea. I have ADHD. I will forget it in 3 minutes if I don't write it down. And so if I have an idea that I think is really good, I have a personal server on Discord where I will write notes to myself and then read it later, so I can send things to myself on my phone and on my computer, which is super helpful. And so I've got like multiple channels in there. I have one like specifically for the ability tree. My notes are like super scuffed sometimes, but as long as it is enough for me to remember what it means, then that's it. Like, there was a discussion the other day. Oh my god, I'm leaking. It's a sound effect. The sound effect for Mage's Purification and Warrior's Cleansing Breeze is a little annoying. And so we were talking about reducing the volume on it. And I wrote quiet breeze in my notes. And I remember what that means. But like, that's all I need. And then it like triggers the memory, because it's in there somewhere. I just need to jog it out of there.
I mean, I do also have a private like channel where I like start scripting random things randomly. I get that. It's very useful to like get things sort of between. Google Drive also works, of course, but it's annoying.
Oh yeah, I've started using Trello, and I feel like I'm so advanced. I don't know why I wasn't using it sooner. It's amazing.
Oh, you're gonna have to tell me more about that, because I don't know what that is. But yeah, sort of moving on, because it's been on everyone's mind, and I feel like I gotta mention it as soon as possible, because we all know it's true, and we just need to hear you say it, okay? What's up with Archer having more summons than Summoner?
Yes. Okay. So, oh my gosh, excuse me. Coffee. Archer, the design that I had for Trapper, I really felt it was lacking in kind of the actual identity of being like the Trapper, the Hunter. The description of the archetype specifically mentioned having these beasts, but it had Call of the Hound, and that was it. And the kit wasn't fully fleshed out. I wanted to give it some new utility. I wanted to tie that utility to different parts of its kit that weren't the traps. Like Murderflock comes out of the traps, but then Ivy Root Mamba interacts specifically with Bryophyte Roots instead, which otherwise was very good and thematically like fitting, I think, but kind of isolated from the rest of the kit in just, it was an add-on to Aerostorm, and then everything else is like traps and all that. And so I wanted to kind of use the beasts to tie these different parts of the kit together thematically. The reason that Summoner doesn't have more summons, we haven't gotten to it yet. And I'm sure everyone by now has seen Purple Emerald's incredible thread on the forums. Which is amazing. Like, I just have to say, it is incredible. Like, the models are amazing. The amount of work put into it is great. Everyone should read that if they haven't yet. Obviously, my plans and what we want to do with Summoner is not just going to be like a copy of this, but I think there's a lot of good ideas in that thread. I want Summoner to have more summons. It definitely doesn't live up to the fantasy of like almost being like a conductor or a general, like managing all of your managing your little army. You don't really do that. You have Bullwhip, and then the summons are just kind of there, and they do their thing, and then you uproot a mob, and then they die. And that's kind of what Summoner has. I like the unique supportive things that Summoner has. I think Invigorating Wave is really cool with the mana that it gives now that it properly gives it to allies as well. But I think Summoner's kit, it needs some work, and I do have plans. We want to get to it at some point. It's just a matter of when, because dev time is limited, and there's always other things that need to be prioritized, and so few devs, so many things to do, so little time. Everything else is competing with the ability tree for dev time. We'll get there. Summoner it will be better. I want it to be better. Everyone wants it to be better.
I'm glad you mentioned the thread, because I read it the other day. Not like every little detail, but I read through it. The models, impeccable.
The models are so good.
They're really good. Especially like the last one that's like a moon
the Dream
thingy.
Dweller, I think it's called.
Yeah, that is crazy good.
They're great.
Oh man, it's really good. I think
the Voodoo is really clever too, because it used like it used kind of the gimmick of how Totem used to work before 2.0, where it would block projectiles, and then turned it into like an intended mechanic, which I think is awesome. Take a bug, make it a feature. It's a feature. It's intended, guys.
But sort of on the topic of Summoner, and you've said that you want to change it and stuff like that, right? It's not fully fleshed out yet. It's been memed as like the AFK class or archetype since 2.0 came out.
Yeah.
Is it gonna require a bit more brain power in the future?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I want Summoner to have things to manage. I want you to be the one that is micromanaging the army. Obviously, it's not going to be like incredibly complex. I also don't want to end up in a scenario where we get like the old Underworld Crypt boss fight where you just summon the one strong thing and don't interact with anything else. That's a callback. Who remembers that one?
Yeah. That's AFK.
But and also this is just something that you can see in what I've already done for the ability tree, is I love adding more things for the player to actively interact with. I love resource management. And so having things that I can turn into unique resources for the archetypes that make their gameplay loops really unique, I think is a good direction to go in order to make each archetype feel really special and have a really unique identity. Because like Sacred Surge kind of turned all of Warrior's defensive passives into a resource of sorts that you manage for your offensive power. And I added Flow State to the Acrobat, which it isn't like that much of a resource that you have to think about that much, but you do have to make sure that you don't stop attacking when you're trying to charge it up. And it also like ties together all of these random things that Acrobat has in a neat way, because now they're all going towards a common goal. Because Acrobat, I found, had all these really cool abilities, Shurikens and Jasmine Bloom and Lacerate, all these multi-hitting attacks, but they didn't really, it wasn't like a cohesive, it didn't feel very cohesive thematically, even though the gameplay felt good. It was my take. Like, you've got the flower and you've got the shurikens and you've got the blue slashes, and I'm like, this could all go towards a big common goal that makes you strong and help with the fact that at that point Acrobat was kind of lacking damage. And then I turned Marked into a resource with Nightcloak Knife, and I'm sure we're going to talk about Shade Stepper more, so I don't need to go in depth with it right now, but
you read my mind. Yep.
I love resources, and so having, I don't mean I'm just going to give every archetype a boss bar meter at the top of the screen, though.
Okay, good.
That is what Sacred Surge and Flow State are, but Marked isn't that. And I think Summoner is another case where I would love to give it more things to manage with the way that you interact with your summons, and more summons to interact with.
So sort of you got to start thinking a bit more. It's basically, I'm just thinking about Shade Stepper, dude. I'm just thinking about Shade Stepper. Because, like, I don't know, I think I've told you, I don't know, I'm not sure. But on every single TikTok I've made for Wynncraft, there's one person, I'm not going to say their name.
Are they like,
but there's one person
15 of asking about Shade Stepper?
On every single TikTok I've made and uploaded, they've commented, buff Shade Stepper when. And I know we saw some changes to Shade Stepper with Nightcloak Knife, one of the coolest sort of combos, right? In my opinion, made for a great video, at least. How these abilities saved Assassin. I think it's a really cool concept, but I feel like, I haven't seen many people play Shade Stepper recently, even though there were changes. Will there be changes, or like, are you happy with how Shade Stepper is right now?
I am not satisfied with Shade Stepper. Conceptually, like, I'm pretty satisfied. Like, I love Satsugen. I love the way Marked works. I love Nightcloak Knife. I think the elements of the kit are there, but we don't have the flow yet. And I feel like I'm probably just going to say the obvious. It's the Vanish cooldown. Mind blown. Yes. No one could have seen this coming. That the Vanish cooldown is why Shade Stepper is held back. Shade Stepper, it's difficult to separate Shade Stepper from Vanish and the cooldown like that, because it was inherently designed with this downside of having to wait for the cooldown.
Yeah.
But the problem with it is that 5 seconds in Wynncraft is a very long amount of time, especially with like the current meta and the amount of like damage people are able to deal, which is a problem in and of itself, but we'll get there when we get there. The opportunity cost of like setting up Nightcloak Knife and then having to wait for your Vanish to come off cooldown is like doubled more so, because you're not actually like getting a big damaging hit out of summoning the knife. And then you have to wait again for Vanish, and there's no way to reduce that cooldown unless you use sandbagging. But even then, like, that's, you have to take damage when you're out of Vanish, so like Disillusion can't help you, and then you'd have to actually like spend ability points on sandbagging on Shade Stepper, which is not amazing, because I think there's no other cooldowns except for Satsugen. I guess you could reduce Satsugen, but I want to keep the cooldown, but I think it would be good to add a way to reduce it that plays into how Shadestepper that would play, so you can mitigate that downside. And you obviously have the way to remove it with getting a kill with Silent Killer, but against bosses, that's not going to play a role, and that's where the ability to reduce the cooldown would matter more.
Yeah. I mean, you and I both talked about the issue about Nightcloak Knife when it was first added, right? The 8-second cooldown it first had.
Yeah,
that was terrible because I suck. I suck at setting up combos. I'm not good at that.
I expected Nightcloak Knife to be like, it would be like this massive, like really like high skill threshold or high skill ceiling. Like you have to do it and then you wait for Vanish and then you have 3 seconds to land the backstab and there's like a massive payoff. It's cool. I still stand by the fact that kind of design is very neat, but it doesn't really work unless we made the payoff massive.
Yeah, which that's the thing.
I don't think is super healthy.
It would have to be like Satogen level payoff. Like it would have to be a much bigger payoff, because like setting up those combos just for like the video took a bunch of tries, right? Now it has a 40-second cooldown, which is much better. But yeah, Shadestepper is still like a bit combo heavy, and like you're pointing out, right? The issue is the cooldown, because if you mess up, just one misstep and your entire like damage combo is like ruined, right? If you mess up with the cooldown or don't do things fast enough. Now at least Nightcloak Knife has a better cooldown.
Like Nightcloak Knife kind of now with it's way less detrimental to try and summon it because it lasts so long. So if you do it once, it lasts 2/3 of a minute. Like that's way better. It's just a good damage buff for that entire time. Nightcloak Knife has a cool interaction with Marked because of how it does its damage calculation, that it actually gets buffed by Marked twice, which is really nice. But Shadestepper, I think, is still going to have a little bit of struggles, even if we have a way to like minimize the cooldown period from Vanish, just because its design inherently has like a cap on how quickly you can do damage. Whereas if you look at like, I was going to say Boltzlinger, but let's look at like Trickster, and specifically like Trickster with Flow State, which is so good right now. Like if you want more damage and you're playing Trickster, you just cast Spin Attack again and you don't have to wait for anything.
Yeah.
But with Shadestepper, you have to wait, so there's a cap on how fast you can do damage, and the only way that you can increase your damage output at that point is to make each hit stronger. And so I need to find a way, I need to find a balance where those single hits are a bit more frequent, but we don't like just remove the identity of Shadestepper being built around this cooldown entirely.
Yeah.
And I also need to make sure like the damage numbers of other archetypes are adjusted, so then Shadestepper actually like kind of has a chance.
So essentially the cooldown that everyone hates, it's not going away, but hopefully there's going to be like some fix to it that makes Shadestepper, puts it up there essentially.
Yeah, I think having like maybe a secondary effect added on to like Silent Killer, that if you don't kill the enemy but you meet a certain requirement, maybe it's tied to marks, maybe it's tied to landing a successful backstab, maybe that would reduce the cooldown by a couple seconds. And I think it would also be neat because then that opens up the opportunity for someone to also unlock sandbagging, and then you get a riskier playstyle where you meet the criteria for the new cooldown reduction and you intentionally take a hit, and that resets the cooldown on Vanish even though you didn't kill the enemy.
Yeah.
Which would be a cool dynamic to have on the tree, I think.
Like less cooldown per marked or something?
Yeah. Something that makes it so the player can reduce the cooldown, but it's still inherently tied to like a successful like attack or something that is tied into the gameplay loop of Shadestepper, and not like just assassin, but specifically how Shadestepper plays. So it would have to be like tied to one of its abilities or something. Like I think successful backstab would lower the cooldown. I think that's just a really like obvious place to put it too. Like if you asked someone, how would Shadestepper reduce the cooldown for Vanish? Make it so they land a backstab and it reduces the cooldown of the next one. I feel like people have suggested this before too. So
and that would make Shadestepper more viable in boss fights, right? Because it doesn't require a kill to reset the cooldown. I think people would like that.
Exactly.
Because no one plays Shadestepper against TNA. It's I've never seen anyone talk about it. Maybe some crazy person out there. I'm sorry if you're
right now the best thing you could do in TNA to reduce the cooldown is like unlock sandbagging and then jump in a void hole after you vanish. Like that's not great. The player should have more options than that.
Deal with that. Okay, well, so, I think go on, Luke.
Aside from Shadestepper, what other abilities or archetypes are you unhappy with that you would like to rework in the near future?
I think we've talked about Summoner, we've talked about Shadestepper. I think that Fallen and Paladin, we also talked about Paladin already. I think Fallen deserves some attention because it's got a really strong initial ability in Bakal's Grasp when it comes to like unique gameplay of you have to play around using your health bar as the archetype's resource and you are encouraged to take risks, and I think that's really sick. But I feel like it doesn't really do that much with the idea after that. Like you have less health, you take more, or you deal more damage. Okay, it's the Rage Powder special, the archetype. What else do we get? Massive Bash, it happens one time, and then you have to charge it again. Armor Breaker, you get a couple, it's cool, but also if you miss, it still triggers it, which is annoying. Blood Pact is really underwhelming right now, and like it just doesn't have much to itself. And so Fallen as a solo archetype, I feel like doesn't really have an identity. It's just like Bakal's Grasp is Fallen, which is fine, but then it gets literally nothing else that is of that much substance in my mind. So I think that's another archetype I want to look at fleshing out further in the future. We just didn't do it yet because I've tried to prioritize the ones that I thought needed help the most. And like when I was working on 2.0.3, after Assassin, which was the first priority, the next two were Trapper and Ritualist were my personal choices. And then next it was going to be Paladin. And then after that, it's like in no particular order, Summoner, another look at Shadestepper, Fallen, and then probably all of Mage.
All of Mage, all at once.
Well, Mage's tree is interesting because when 2.0 first came out, I think Mage's tree is really solid. Like it's really, it's just good, and that's all I had to say about it.
Except Riftwalker. Riftwalker. Riftwalker sucks, everybody. Riftwalker is a scam, waste of time. Do Arcanist or Backender.
Riftwalker only has time dilation.
I think Riftwalker has some design flaws because half of its kit is Winded does more damage on this now, Winded does more damage on that now, and then Time Lock, which is not even worth it, but looks cool. Like, okay, Riftwalker needs help. But I think the Mage tree in general, when 2.0 first released, was pretty solid, but now that the other trees have started getting more attention, which Warrior still needs that, like it has really only gotten a little bit of dev time for Paladin, but now Mage is almost like the next one up, where the ones that were the biggest like glaring weaknesses of the entire ability tree update have been looked at, and now it's like Mage, you're starting to fall up behind a little bit. And so I have plans for like all three archetypes for Mage that I'm very excited for, because I want to flesh them out. I think that Lightbender's kit, like going down the tree, I feel like half of its kit is like Ophanim has more health, and now it does more damage, and now you have another orb, and now it has more health again, and now you have more orbs again. Like there is more than just Ophanim, please.
There's the spinning orb around you.
Lightweaver is cool.
Lightweaver, yeah.
But then like Arcanist is cool. Yeah. But I feel like later on it has such a wealth of mana with Chaos Explosion that like you don't really utilize anything else. And like it's not like the rest it has is that impactful, like Pyrokinesis and Arcane Speed. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's all right. And then Riftwalker suffers from Winded. It suffers from Winded. And that's something we need to look at.
I think I've done like Riftwalker, the full like giving it my honest try only once on 2.0 beta, and I tried like no, it's not time dilation, it's the other one, the one that freezes you in time. I forget the name. Time lock. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it did not go well. I probably judged it a bit too harshly because it was beta, and everyone knows that you shouldn't take betas too seriously because they're buggy and don't work. But I don't think I'm alone in saying Riftwalker can feel like a bit underwhelming sometimes.
Yeah, I also think Riftwalker is a little underwhelming. I think it needs something else to just like call its own that is not just Winded, because like as nice as Winded is as a resource, I love resource management, guys. It's great. Resource, it should be good, right? Like I like that you have to melee to apply it. That's good. Yeah. I like that it makes your spells stronger. That's good. But okay, it can have more than just that, please.
Isn't it funny though how like Mage was like the big spell, like the spell class before 2.0, and now essentially 2 of its archetypes require some form of melee input.
Yeah, it is kind of funny though. I think that's something else I actually like about the Mage tree that I think the other trees are lacking on right now. With like the Mage tree has some baked in inherent melee support. It's not that much, but it's there. Like you're encouraged to melee with how Lightbender works with Ophanim. You need it to apply Winded, so you're using it for utility even if you're not using it for damage. And then Pyrokinesis is there as an attempt to make melee a strong offensive option. Does it succeed? No, but the attempt is there. It's a good start. We can work with that. And I think a lot of the other trees don't have the same level of support for melee, which is, I think, another just missed opportunity in 2.0. Obviously, only so much could happen with time constraints of actually working on the update when it first released. But I would love to have more abilities that interact with melee to make those playstyles more interesting as well.
Yeah.
I have many plans for abilities that interact with melee for a lot of the different archetypes across the game, because it's just a really underutilized design space, and it's a big part of the game. It's your main attack. It is called your main attack. I think it should be treated a little bit more respect almost.
Is that the revival of melee I'm hearing? Melee that's been dead for a year?
My nickname on like the Atlas Inc. Discord is like Melee Bound Dragon or something, because it will happen. We will get melee.
At one point in the far, far future, melee players can rejoice again. I want to backtrack a little bit back to Mage, because Lou's a Mage main. What's your opinion on Mage?
Mage is my favorite class. My favorite archetype is Lightbender. I just kind of dogged on Mage's tree, but like, man, I really like Ophanim. I love the new Ophanim boss bar that Dash coded in 2.0.3 is God's gift to Wynncraft. It is amazing. I love the way that this archetype plays. And I want to add more to help it have more of an identity and more of a kit that feels like it's not just having one main ability and then you upgrade it and you don't really get much else. Like Lightweaver's neat, but
yeah,
there is more stuff that we can add. Like, think about, what does Ice Snake do for Lightbender? Like, you actually care about using it? Like, I just use it to spell cycle. Yeah, exactly. You use it to spell cycle, but it feels like a dud spell in the kit almost, where it's like, it's there, it does Ice Snake's effect, but it doesn't really have much else that when it comes to actually being a part of Lightbender's kit. And that's something else I like to try and look at when I'm adding new abilities, is like, what feels like it's missing? What is inherently underutilized by this archetype. But yeah, Light Thunder. Woo!
On a little side note, there are people, there have been since 2.0, that have been talking about the update being called Spellbound, but spell spamming actually being nerfed incredibly compared to before 2.0. I mean, before 2.0, you could literally spam spells the entire time on every archetype. Well, they weren't archetype, but on every class. And now it's kind of not possible anymore on most classes, except maybe
Arcanist. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything you have to say about that?
So this wasn't my decision to make, but I do think it's easier to try and balance things when you don't have to worry about the case where people can just infinitely spam. And like, then there's Arcanist, and that's like the entire design of the archetype. So like, Salted, what have you left with me? What have you left for me to deal with? But I think like the only way that archetypes like Shade Stepper could ever work in Wynncraft at all is if like really intense extreme spell spam, like to that extent, was made less easy to execute and build around. So like, it was controversial. I was even like kind of against it when like intelligence first got changed, and then it got changed again to be like less extreme, and now I think I'm actually like quite happy with the state that it's in generally.
Yeah, I kind of wanna I kind of wanna backtrack a little bit, because I put up this questions thing where everyone in the chat can like write in what they think is an archetype that needs changes desperately. And obviously Riftwalker.
Yeah.
But you've heard us on that one, I think. But I see here once again mentioned Fallen, and that brought me sort of back to what you talked about Fallen. Like, how would you want Fallen to look? What is it supposed to be, in your opinion? Like, what would make it better?
Like, I think a lot of the abilities that are there are very cool in concept, but they're just really underpowered in execution. Like, the idea behind Blood Pact is neat, because Fallen is already using your health bar as a resource, and that does it more. Now you can spell spam more if you have the health for it, and you can intentionally damage yourself with it while corrupted in order to increase your damage output. But it's really not that good. And then you have to like also unlock Hemorrhage just to make it good. So now you're sinking like 3 ability points into something that's mediocre. And then that happens like multiple times throughout Fallen's kit. Like Massive Bash, incredibly cool in concept. In reality, it makes a single hit of Bash have a bigger hitbox, and it looks cool, and it makes Boiling Blood bigger, which is like, that's kind of it. Yeah. And it doesn't really make sense to me that it feels like there's 2 competing ideologies here, where it's like, one side you have stuff like Blood Pact and Massive Bash and Armor Breaker, which are like, let's reduce our health, trigger this, and then leave Corrupted, regain our health from Intoxicating Blood, and then enter Corrupted again. And then on the other side is literally how Bakal's Grasp works already, where it has a cooldown of how quickly you can re-enter Corrupted after you leave it. It gets reduced by... I don't remember the name of the ability, but it's on the tree. It gets reduced to 10 seconds, but like, that's still a long time. It's like a smaller version of the Shade Stepper problem, where like, if you ever need to heal or like leave Corrupted or if you want to leave Corrupted in order to have another chance to trigger Armor Breaker or Massive Bash or use Blood Pact for more spell spamming, there's a huge opportunity cost for actually leaving it, and it feels like they're competing with each other internally for no reason. So I would love to, I think if I was to add like one new thing to Fallen, I would want to improve what's there to actually be worth using. Make Blood Pact better somehow, make Massive Bash better somehow, make Armor Breaker just not trigger if you miss, Like it'll only activate if you actually hit something with it. That would be nice. I would want to give Fallen some flashy new thing that also serves as a way to restore health, some amount of its health when leaving corrupted in boss fights, because it's another case where like there are other archetypes that struggle with this too, where you go into a boss fight and suddenly you can't use your kit to its fullest potential because there's only a single enemy, and so you can't trigger Intoxicating Blood. I think it's Intoxicating Blood, which is the one where you regain health for every enemy you've killed while you were corrupted whenever you leave corrupted. Like that just is a non-factor, and so you just have to rely on potions, and it's like you lose the flow when you get into a boss fight against a single enemy. And it's the same thing as Shadestepper, where like you lose the flow. Shadestepper against a group of weak mobs, you can go invisible and chain backstabs on things and mark everything, and it's super satisfying. Like dancing between enemies and popping in and out of sight to kill everything in one hit. You go against a boss and you lose all of that, and you don't really get much else in that setting. And Fallen, I think, is a less extreme case of the same issue. So I would want to add something that addresses that.
So we're not getting quintuple and sextuple and sectuple or whatever bash. We're getting thought out.
Yeah, no,
instead.
I'm gonna add 3 upgrades to Fallen. They're all gonna give bash an extra hit, and that's all you get.
Yeah,
We're gonna
that
have
would solve everything, right?
Septuple bash, and that'll fix everything.
Yeah,
all of the hits are gonna be
octuple,
spaced so far apart and so weak, because you have to reduce the damage every time, that it won't be good, because you won't be able to hit one enemy with all 7, but it's going to have incredible range. So it makes up for it, right?
Yeah, it's AoE, right? That's always good.
And also
Just
it would
boost
take
AoE.
so long.
Oh, well, yeah, it would. Maybe just making quad bash to go faster would be something. Because it does take a while to do all of them.
Quad bash also has... It could be so much better if massive bash worked differently, because if imagine a quad bash where all 4 hits of it have the increased range, so now
All
you
of
can
them
actually
quad
reliably hit
massive?
a single enemy with
That
bash
would
4
be
times
too
with
OP.
one cast.
What? Quad massive bashes. That would be super OP. The AoE, you demolish null minions in seconds.
But it would be fun. And
it would
Massive
be
Bash
fun.
is so nothing right now. Like, I want Massive Bash to be a more relevant part of the kit. I want everything Fallen has to be more relevant to Fallen. Because right now, Fallen as a solo archetype does not exist. You get Enraged Blow, and then you go Battle Monk, right?
Yeah. Or Paladin if you don't know what you're doing. Yeah.
Like, Fallen is Enraged Blow, Bakal's Grasp, and play another archetype.
To be fair, like you can say that about Paladin too, right? Like they're both like Warrior is Battle Monk, and then you can choose
just
being
Battle Monk right now,
It's like, do you want to go DPS or do you want to go defense as an extra
do I want to be the
side
tank
bonus?
monk or the DPS monk or just the monk?
Yeah.
I have both Fallen and Paladin on my radar because I want them to succeed as solo archetypes, and right now they don't. And someone in the chat is gonna bring up Martyr. Yes, we're getting rid of Martyr. Like I've said this before. We're gonna replace Martyr with something better.
Longer immunity to your teammates.
We could
also
literally...
like I feel like the range on all like the immunity ones. I know Lightbender has some ability that's that's like Martyr. But not fully. But I feel like the range on them is always like super little. Cause like think about like TNA. The boss room is huge. You need like 30 block range for it to be effective to help any teammate. I feel like a lot of those like range ones, not like damage, but like ally buff ones, I feel a bit short on range because I always got to think about it. I don't remember which ability it was, but I know we talked about this, about the 2.0.3 thing, that one of them had like super short range and I was complaining. But like
I would love to like, I feel like Martyr just almost like doesn't have a chance to or a reason to be there, because you could literally just combine Martyr's effect with Second Chance and it would be fine, and then you have room for something actually substantial for Paladin there. I don't think the actual effect of Martyr is awful, though I don't really want to encourage intentionally dying, but I mean, like, you could just put Martyr inside of Second Chance, and then now you have a space on the tree for something that's better than Martyr, because Martyr is really
bad either. If it has that double ability, as long as it still exists. When I'm gonna make a TikTok about Second Chance and how warriors can survive deaths on Wynncraft. Oh my god, you gotta play this server, yo.
This is the smallest, stupidest use case ever. It doesn't exist yet, but guys, I'm sad to say Sacred Surge is still technically not complete. We put all this time coding it. Dash slaved away on this ability and did an incredible job. It's not finished. And the reason is because dying from Second Chance does not charge Sacred Surge. I am sorry to say.
What a scam. What is not even Martyr either then.
I don't get my 1% charge on Sacred Surge from dying.
What's the point?
Dying for here.
What is the point of playing Paladin, right? Like
it's a bonus to Battle Monk. We've talked about this. Warrior is a Battle Monk. That's all it is. That's all it is. We all know it's true. Let's not pretend. Do you feel the same way about Acolyte as you do for Fallen?
Acolyte is interesting. I think Acolyte is super fun and really unique, but it has a bit of Fallen syndrome where, like, you get the one thing, which is Sack Shrine, which is amazing. I love the dynamic, like the unique style of play you get from it. And I think Blood Connection is also incredible for mobility and just being another great thing for the archetype. But then, like, you get a couple passives, like you get Fluid Healing, you get Blood Right. All right,
Twisted
those are nice.
Tether, best ability.
Twisted Tether is like...
I'm the only one who thinks it's cool in the entire game.
No, I think Twisted Tether is cool. I just think it doesn't matter. Like, I could never melee as Acolyte on my normal, like, spell Acolyte that I have, and it would change nothing. Like, because Twisted Tether just doesn't do that much. Like, but I like... There was an attempt to make it a resource. I love resource management. I'll keep saying it. There was an attempt. It costs 1 point of blood pool to tether an enemy.
Yeah.
Okay. And it does like negligible damage. Like,
to be fair,
the pieces are there.
To be fair, Shaman's only aura. Okay, Shaman's only aura. That's all you do. Unless you're Summoner, then it's aura and AFK. It's aura and AFK.
You act like AFK is a separate part of the class.
Oh yeah. You aura whilst you're AFK. You just,
Yeah, that's great. I'm gonna tape down a button on my keyboard that's the Wintil's aura macro.
Yeah, exactly. Is
that allowed?
Don't we all already do that?
I'm not encouraging this behavior. Actually, don't. I said nothing.
Moderators,
you're not allowed to have repeated macros for a spell.
Yeah.
You heard nothing.
But they can't see what goes on physically at your locate. No, kidding. Don't break the win rules. We're gonna have you banned.
No one would know. How would they know?
Okay, don't encourage them. They're impressionable, okay? They're impressionable viewers.
People have definitely been macroing before.
No, I'm encouraging them to do bad things. Oh, I'm a bad influence.
Now they're gonna have to ban Wintil's Xavier things. Now they're gonna have to ban Wintil's.
Oh, it's my fault.
They already deleted the fast macros.
Dang. Now, if you see someone who you suspect of macroing, you just make sure that they die by swarming them with enemies, and then you see if the spells continue in the city that they respawn in.
Yeah.
Very easy, actually.
Oh my god, I've seen that happen in scrapyard parties. Like, people... It's so blatant, actually.
It happens a lot in all kinds of grinding environments.
Yeah, all the grind parties, because then, like, one of the one lightbender dies, and then everyone else dies in the next 10 seconds, because of course.
Or the guardian user in a boat.
And then you just have, like, the shaman player sitting there, and you just watch them cast totem.
Yeah.
And then they're standing there and they cast aura. And then like 25 seconds later, they cast another totem. And it's like,
I mean,
yeah.
Mount Win money grinding was effective for only so long.
Oh, and then we buff poison. We're just encouraging it.
Yeah.
Dang.
Now, like, everyone hates on Blood Sorrow. I think it's one of the coolest abilities. Like, it looks super cool. I look in awe at like these cool abilities, but at the end of the day, right? Like I said, it's just aura. You do aura for damage, and the rest, it looks cool. It looks cool.
Yeah. I think like, yeah, I want to make Blood Sorrow better. There's an argument of like taking some power out of Sacrificial Shrine and putting it into like the other Acolyte abilities to make it so you have to engage with like the rest of the kit to get value. Kind of like the same thing with Summoner. Obviously, like it needs to have more things you actually interact with, but also like putting the power in the things that require player intervention, so then you don't end up with a really like monotonous playstyle being like the best one.
Yeah.
That's valid. Because I feel like every Acolyte is just an Acolyte with Mask of the Lunatic.
Yeah, right.
I mean, that's what it is.
No one does full Acolyte because Blood Sorrow is just...
And that's not true, though. That's not true, though. I did full Acolyte for the one you can have blood magic TikTok I made like the other day. So one person's done it.
It looks cool.
It looks cool. It looks cool. Okay.
It does look amazing. I think, despite the fact that Blood Sorrow is not that strong, I love the way it looks, and the way it actually just feels to use and aim at enemies is incredible because of the way it like chains between targets, which it's great. And it wasn't originally listed in the ability description. I had to add it later on because like I tested it. I'm like, this is great, and no one knows unless they use the ability, and no one's using the ability. So it's just because it kind of homes in and curves towards enemies and allies that are within its path. So it's really cool to use. It's just not very strong.
Its range for AoE grind parties is also really really
24
good.
blocks is great. I think it's 24.
Yeah.
Speaking of Blood Sorrow, what's it called? Overhaul? Because Diversion, the bottom of Trickster. Has anyone ever touched that? I cannot say.
Dude, we
ever used
it too, and it's like, I don't think the problem is diversion. Diversion is actually pretty strong, but
does anyone use overhealth?
You would have to. The reason no one's using diversion is it's at the bottom of the Trickster tree, and why would you go to the bottom of the Trickster tree when you can just get Forbidden Art and stronger clones and then get Flow State?
Exactly.
So it's like there's the more offensive, less tanky version with getting Flow State, and then there's the tankier version with getting diversion and then even stronger clones as like a pity. Here's some more damage for going full Trickster, but the Trickster is already so tanky because of how clones work that like there's no real incentive for using diversion because you almost don't need it. Right now.
At the same time, we live in an age where everyone just wants damage, warp speed to run away from Greg, damage. So a lot of people don't even consider that type of ability.
Yeah.
It was a good time 2 years ago when the meta was water, fire, air.
Dude,
I'm still in that mindset. I'm always going to be a VFA player.
1.20.3 was the update.
Before 2.0, I used pure Eden Blessed Guards and Virtuoso. Like, that was my jam. And that just died, and I'm so sad.
Days. EHP nerf 2 with 2.0, it just killed VFA.
Yeah.
I mean, the HP nerf wasn't that bad, in my opinion.
I miss pure.
I don't know. I feel like I'm so much glassier now, or I'm just bad at the game. Let me pretend it's the
both.
It's the game. It couldn't be my fault.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. It's not user error.
Yep. Absolutely not.
But when it comes to like specific like type of abilities, right? Like no one uses overhealth. I haven't seen many people use bamboozle like as like a specific thing. I love bamboozle. It's one of the coolest things I've seen at it, right? You know that because all I talked about when I was working on that video was how cool bamboozle was.
I love bamboozle, but you are right.
Yeah. But what's like an underutilized ability or like a hybrid of something that you feel like not enough people have tried yet?
I mean, I have to mention Arcbender because if I don't, someone else is going to, even though it's really bad right now. And like, that's known that it's really bad. Like, I do want to make Arcanist Lightbender hybrid an actual viable option. I have a couple ideas for it that would be unique to the hybrid, which I think would be really cool. But right now it is underutilized for good measure. It's really weak. And I'm glad that we've taken the first step of like removing the lock that prevented it from existing at all. Now I want to work on making it actually like worth even trying once, because it's cool to try it and be like, hey, Ophanim charges mana bank, so it's like really easy to use like Chaos Explosion. Yeah. And then you reset your ability tree because it's bad.
I know we've talked a lot for the audience listening. When we work on the update videos for you guys to understand the change.
Oh my god, it's been an hour. Oh, Jesus.
Time flies.
When we work on the update changelog videos, we work together with Xavier to, sort of understand further and, so we can share the information the way it's intended. And so everyone's on the same page.
Among other people, obviously, we do proper research, talk to the people that worked on the update just to get a good insight.
Don't talk to me about like the new quests or anything.
Oh,
I have no idea. No. I do abilities, I do items sometimes, I do music sometimes.
Yeah.
I have started working on caves. Because I was like, I want to do stuff. So I've started looking into caves. I have a massive spreadsheet that is actually 3 spreadsheets for caves that I want to work on improving them across the game. I've got a few that I worked on designing that are going to be hopefully in the next major patch, which I'm excited for.
I love some of the new caves, or at least like the new style. Oh, it's like you're literally inside like Dungeons and Dragons. Some of those caves, It's so sick.
Yeah.
Everyone hates Pirate Lattice, but I love Pirate Lattice. One of my favorite caves.
I dislike Pirate Lattice because it's part of the loot run. I like Pirate Lattice as a cave.
You know what's super embarrassing? After the so-called like hotfix that fixed Pirate Lattice, I didn't see that there was an exit teleport.
Oh no.
So, because I usually like drop down to like teleport out, but there were checkpoints. I would always like spawn at the checkpoint. So what I did was like go to the very end of the cave anyways and like fly around the entire coastline basically. And then I was watching one of the staff members do a loot run, and there was an exit there.
Yeah. I think the same thing happened to me. Except I was actually, when I did the cave for the first time after they changed it, I was just looking around to find the XP reward chest.
Oh yeah.
So I eventually found the exit.
Yeah. But yeah, so back on the topic of like underutilized hybrids, right? So what I was saying, right? We when we make those videos for you, the audience, right? We talk with Xavier. And I remember when we talked about, for the assassin changes, right, in February, I did a separate video talking about the new abilities. And the plan was, I just didn't really get to it. But we talked about, like a video talking about like hybrids or special combos. Should more people try like a triple nuke totem with the triple totem and totemic shatter?
Oh my god.
Stuff like that?
I want that to be good so badly. Like, the problem right now with, like, triple totem totemic shatter is that double and triple totem reduce the totem tick damage over time, which is the damage value that totemic shatter uses. So there's just some anti-synergy there. absolutely want to change how that works so totemic shatter is better with multiple totems.
I'd like to interject
yes.
because I have been thoroughly testing totemic shatter. It's like my favorite ability.
Yeah, talk to me.
Spamming triple totems, having triple totem is better in terms of DPS because you get to you can cycle so that when one of your totems is about to leave, you can throw another one. And whereas if you have double totem, you end up reducing the DPS because
you have to wait
usually
for totem.
beat past the totem while it's doing the thing.
Yeah, that is the one advantage, is that like when you have double and triple totem, even though it's making each shatter weaker, you can actually like you have a way higher uptime on the damage because you don't have to wait for your totem to finish before you can throw another one. But I still think that anti-synergy is almost like unnecessary, given like totemic shatter is not like an incredibly strong ability. Like sometimes if there's something new, I would rather it be too strong than too weak. And I think that you see this in a lot of game design where like if you're adding something new, like a new character, a new class or whatever, like Overwatch just did this with the new character Alari, and like Valorant does this when they add new characters, or at least they sometimes do. Don't talk to me about Deadlock. Because if it's new and it's really strong, people are actually going to use it, and you'll get feedback not only on like the power, but actually just the game feel. Like, how does it feel to use? How does it incorporate into the rest of the kit? How does it feel thematically? Like, is this something that the players want and like? And so like, oh my god, I just completely lost my train of thought.
So to explain this from a game design perspective, essentially you want to make something that's new, overpowered, so people actually play it instead of sticking to the things that they are used to. Because if it's just as good, there's no real reason to not stay within your comfort zone. So you want to make it OP, so people use it, so they have fun with it, so they get used to it and they actually try it out.
Yeah, exactly. Because then you actually get like the necessary data from people about like, how can we make this better? How can we adjust this to make it feel good? And I try to do that with things as well here. Like, I was okay with Assassin, like when Assassin first got all of this new stuff in the Blizzard Festival, I was less worried about trying to nail the balance first try. Because one, Assassin was basically getting to 2.0, like showing up to the party 6 months later than the other 4 classes. But also, I wanted people to use the new stuff, and I wanted them to feel good. Assassin had just been sad for half a year, and I wanted it to be good.
Yeah.
And then we can get people actually using it and seeing how everything interacts. Because as much as I can try and test everything, I'm one guy, and I can get help from like other people on the content team, but that's like, there's a difference between having 10 people testing and having 1,000 players immediately break an ability once it goes to live on the first hour.
Yeah. No, I totally lost my train of thought there. That's funny.
Just like me.
It happens to everyone, I guess. Okay, so I'm gonna bring back to a topic I had on my mind earlier, right? We talked about Summoner, right? And Purple Emerald's awesome thread, right?
Oh yeah.
When it comes to like feedback, but also like suggestions people have on changes or new abilities or what have you, anything that basically revolves around what you do. How much of that like influences what you do? But also, what's like one of the bigger mistakes, or like what's something that people sort of don't have in mind when they suggest things that maybe if they did keep in mind, it would help suggestions or feedback sort of be received better, or something like that.
So to start with the first point of like when we're adding new abilities, what am I trying to do, and what do I think people could do when they're trying to think of new abilities is often, if I'm trying to add something new, not only do I want something like new and exciting and useful and thematically like fitting for the archetype, I'm trying to fix a perceived problem with the archetype. And I think a lot of people have like a vision of what they want, a Rift Walker or an Acolyte or a Battle Monk or whatever archetype or class to be. But if they're adding something, it might have overlap with something that already exists, or feels like it's coming out of nowhere from the perspective of like, what is the point of adding this beyond it's a cool new strong thing that is flashy? And I'm not saying that all suggestions are like this. I think there's a lot of really well thought out suggestions from lots of players, and I get a lot of ideas from the community of changes to make. There are a few I've done directly. There are many where I get ideas, and I use the feedback from players as a really good way to identify problems that I'm not finding myself, because again, I try my best, but there's only one of me, and I will miss things sometimes. And so if there's like a perceived problem with an archetype or an ability or anything that players are talking about and trying to find ways to fix, that feedback is super useful for me, because then I get ideas on what to fix, but also what is it that is flawed to begin with, and that's where we need to look at.
Yeah. What's the best place for like giving you feedback? Like, what's the best sort of forum, so to say? Is it in the ability forums thread, or is it like over on Discord in the feedback threads, or like, where do you check?
So I try to check everywhere, but it is difficult because there are so many places, and I feel like I need to almost like write down a routine so I don't forget somewhere, because there's like the feedback section on the forums, which is great. I have the ability tree questions thread, which I finally started catching up on again recently, which is a cool resource. I just need to actually like do my half of it and catch up on the questions, because there's a lot of good questions that I just haven't answered yet, because unfortunately I have a job as well. Like I'm going to university and I have a job, and
we're stealing your time right now. Like, how dare
I hate having to be an adult sometimes, you know?
Oh yeah, it sucks. It can be tough.
But
sometimes.
there's those avenues on the forums, and then the other best place is there's the feedback section on the main Wynncraft Discord, the constructive feedback section, which I am horrendously behind on. I just caught up on reading a bunch of threads that I have yet to respond to in the feedback section, and now I need to go through the constructive feedback section on the Discord and go through all of the things tagged classes and abilities there, and then see. And there's so much. There are so many people giving suggestions, often very good suggestions, or even if I don't agree with the actual suggestion, I agree with the place it's coming from. Like, what is the problem which we're both mutually trying to solve here from different perspectives? I usually agree on that front. It's just so much sometimes. Everyone is so passionate, and I love the passion, and that's why like I do what I do as well. Is it comes from a place of I am obsessed with this game, and I want to do the best for this game as I can for the players, because this game has given so much to me, and I want to give back if I can. This sounds so cliche. I want to give back to the community that made me who I get am.
It. You're talking to the right person.
I want to thank the Academy and my parents.
Thank the community. I wouldn't be anything without you guys. Thank you. Subscribe, like, comment.
Exactly.
Oh wait, no, that's what I'm supposed to say. Yeah. Do you feel like sometimes
subscribe to Alchemist on YouTube?
Who's here is not subscribed? No, kidding. Yeah, please subscribe if you're watching.
You better
makes me
be
very happy. Yeah, you heard it. You're gonna get banned on Win.
We're gonna get more podcasts in the future. Hopefully.
Yeah, we're gonna do.
Guaranteed.
Yeah, we are gonna do.
We have some plans.
More of
we have
this.
some other very talented intellectual individuals planned.
Yep.
Subscribe so Linus can pay us more money.
Hey. But do you feel like sometimes maybe like when it comes to like when I talked with some of the CT members last year, I did some interviews, right? I talk a bit about feedback, right? Because sort of dealing with feedback is something I need to get better at, right? But do you feel like sometimes maybe people might not like consider that they're heard, but you know there's the time aspect, right? Developers are the ones that code in the things you work on, and their time is also limited.
I think it is easy to forget that there's a very real possibility that people will like read what you've posted but not actually have a response for it, at least not at that time. I'm guilty of this too, but I don't really want to like blame players for that, because what I could just do is, if I've read your thread and it either like I've read your feedback, I think it's great, or like I've considered it but I don't have a response for it, or I'm going to respond to it later, there's a thing on the forums I could be doing called liking the post, which tells you that it's been seen, and that's something I need to do more. I have so many tabs open, right? This is related. I have so many tabs open, and a lot of them are Wynncraft forum threads of feedback. I have a couple from like October of last year that are like still open because I think the feedback was good. I don't think the people who wrote those threads have any idea I saw them because I haven't interacted with them. But I have over 3,000 tabs open. Thanks, Opera GX, for helping manage tabs.
Oh, but like tab tree things.
Tab groups are great. Yeah. Please don't judge me for not being able to close tabs.
Oh no. Oh but, no. What are you, a class builder? They also use a bunch of tabs.
So right, Opera GX, the migration from Chrome to Opera GX.
No, it's so true.
All the WinBuilder tabs is so useful. Oh my god.
I literally did the same thing. I had too many tabs open and I moved to Opera GX to help with it, because now I can leave them open and it won't slow down my entire computer like it did with Google Chrome. Because the thing with my ADHD is that if I close the tab, I will forget that the tab ever existed. So I need to leave it open if I ever want to read it again, or I need to like send the link to myself or something. So I've slowly been going through and putting them in bookmarks and stuff, but I'll clear some out, and then the next day I've opened 50 more.
You guys are making my life harder. I'm trying to convince all the staff members to switch to Firefox. I've already gotten like 2 people. What is
Firefox is the superior browser.
Yes, I've heard good things about Firefox as well, especially when it comes to like managing tabs, which is what was relevant for me and why I switched away from Chrome. I've heard good things about Firefox as well. I chose to switch to Opera GX because it was an easy switch from Chrome, where
it's for gamers,
it runs off of Chromium, and so I was able to keep all of my passwords and everything and transfer it all over. And I know that Firefox, I'm pretty sure they have a way to do that as well, but it also kept all my bookmarks, and I could even keep all of my open tabs and transfer them to the new browser, which was just such an ease of access for me. So that was why I made the switch that I did, but Firefox is also good. Don't use me for the reason you would switch browsers. I am not an authority on the subject.
If you're going for safety, Firefox is pretty much the only safe call, except for the Thor browser, which is a lot harder to use. So Firefox is kind of your best bet here.
But
what do you mean? Microsoft Edge is great.
Yeah, Xavier, what you are an expert on is abilities. See, I'm doing a perfect segue back into the ability. That was so smooth, right? That was like but now I ruined it by pointing it out.
It's almost like the word ability is used twice in the video title.
It's not my fault. It is my fault.
It is your fault. You run the channel.
No one suggested a better title. I mean, we are talking about the ability tree, but also abilities, right? I'm just being clear. No, but back to abilities and stuff like that, right? Out of the archetypes you've reworked so far, which one are you the most happy with?
I am really happy with the direction that Ritualist is going. I think there's still more to be done. I think Coward Mask is a little underwhelming compared to Fanatic Mask and Lunatic Mask, and I think there's still the obvious issue of how strong Lunatic Mask is and easy to get, and then just use it in like Acolyte or Summoner. And you can use it in Summoner now, which is awesome because of Haunting Memory. But like, it's, I think the direction it's going of like being a proper like stance change playstyle is so cool. It's not quite there yet, but I think that's the one I'm the most proud of, because I think Trapper was a less ambitious plan to just go like full on chaos demolitionist with it. And I think it also like traps probably deserve a little more, because Minefield as a final red is really underwhelming.
It needs more summons.
I feel like I love the summons that Trapper has. I love that it's like a Beastmaster. But I really do feel like we should get like more dynamic traps. I feel like all the traps just do damage and that's all they do.
Yeah, the traps are a little neglected now.
Yeah.
And then, like, what else have I done? I did all of Assassin. I think Acrobat is great, but also I didn't really have to do much to it. I designed Flow State, and then Pirouette is awesome. I think that ability is great. I wasn't originally gonna call it Pirouette originally. When we conceived of the ability, we didn't have a name, and then I just came up with the name Vault, which was fine. And then we discussed like a couple other name ideas, and I think it was Altacar suggested Pirouette, and then Salted obviously wanted to call it Pirouette because he's biased, because he's French, and Pirouette is a French word, and so we called it Pirouette.
Helicopter would be much more funny.
No, it's I actually like the name Pirouette because it ties into the fact that it's an upgrade to Dancing Blade, and Pirouette is a dance, so it's actually like,
yeah,
it's very fitting. But Acrobat I'm really satisfied with, but I didn't really have to do much. Trickster is better, but most of what I did that was like impactful for it was just getting the way that clones tank damage changed.
Yeah.
And then Shade Stepper still has some work, but I think Nightcloak Knife is really cool. Like conceptually, it just has too high of an opportunity cost right now. And those are like, those are the 5 that I've made like really drastic changes to. I guess you could include Sharpshooter, but
yeah,
I feel like that one was not as big.
It was like 2 abilities, right? The
Twins Restraints and
the Twins Arc one that went through the piercing thing.
Yeah, Phasing Beam is what it's called.
Yes.
I think the things I've done that I'm like the most proud of the direction they've either went or are like currently going towards are Ritualist currently, as well as I'm really proud of the new Archer tree layout that I designed.
Yeah, I like it.
I tried to maintain.
You can skip elusive and still.
No,
you can skip the slowness one.
Snowstorm is so good.
Snowstorm.
You know, I love that you mentioned that. What are your plans for Snowstorm?
I don't have anything specifically planned for Snowstorm,
so
but I feel like I hear every other day that Snowstorm is bad. So it'll.
I think it's.
I'm just glad you can skip it now.
Because Archer is such a mobile and fast class.
Yeah.
That Snowstorm just seems redundant as an idea to begin with. Because
I think I should
mobs that you pass by are they're gone before they even. It's just redundant. Yeah.
I think I should buff the range of Snowstorm by half a block
100%.
every single patch until it is ridiculous.
Because
last time I buffed it by half a block, and I think if I just buff it by half a block every patch, eventually it will be ridiculous and it'll be really funny.
You'll just stand in one corner of TNA arena and then just have slowness to Greg, who's halfway across.
It's like the King of Hearts effect, where like it was an inside joke for the item makers that every big update we would add another 0 to all of its negative IDs, then we had to stop because we had to worry about underflows, so we stopped doing that. But there are a couple like the integer limit, and then it would like underflow to a huge positive value. We actually had to start worrying about that, so we stopped that. And then there's also like
number 6 moment.
We did that to. There was another case with items. Dust Skaters is we had a joke for a little bit that we should just keep adding IDs to Dust Skaters. So it has like the weirdest combination of IDs now. It is
Skaters
hilarious.
Poison raw stack. Like
it's got like making me open Win Builder.
Yeah.
To look at Dust Skater.
I'm getting the link to put in
Dust
chat.
currently has 8 agility, 3,200 poison, 15% earth damage, 210 main attack damage, 18% spell damage, 18% thorns, 45% air defense, 24 walk speed, 12 sprint, 12 sprint regen.
That's like the most useful ID. What are you talking about?
We're gonna add like we gotta add like one of the new IDs to it. Like we'll add like
elemental damage. Elemental damage.
Elemental. No, let's add like one of the elemental raws, but it's like
rainbow main attack damage.
Yeah, like something or like fire. Like it's not even tied to the elements of the item anymore. Like
oh man. You guys gave Marionette some fire. Those new unique elemental IDs. You gave it fire spell damage percent, I believe.
Yeah.
Marionette.
Yes, 7 to 30 fire spell damage percent.
I just saw
actually, that makes me think of a very good question.
Massive combination of useless IDs. It's it's great.
How relieved would you say you and the item makers, word is a boat on screen, how relieved would you say you are with the extra power you guys are getting with, for example, the new major IDs that these items are getting?
Oh my goodness!
Their time is so short in demand.
It is amazing. Like having a bit more freedom to explore these things ourselves and having the systems in place to be able to like a fair amount of major IDs, like we can conceptualize and make them work without any dev time from like Dash or Zero or any of the developers, and having the freedom to do that, and then like we get the go ahead for it. Like we're not just gonna go rogue and add like the craziest things in game because we want the game to be good and not just broken. But it is so freeing being able to work on a lot of these things and not have it all be constrained. There's still dev time constraints for a lot of it, but when it isn't necessary, not having to go through the same kind of pipeline is amazing.
Yeah.
There were a couple of... You were going to say the same thing.
Quick. Someone in chat is curious about if the fun of an ability / archetype is more important or the balancing when creating an ability / archetype.
I absolutely consider feeling first. I don't want to completely discount balance, but I think getting the gameplay loop to feel satisfying and to have the player be able to kind of live out the fantasy that they would expect the archetype they've chosen to like embody, it should be the forefront of how the game feels. And then from there we can adjust the numbers and adjust the effects to make it so nothing is crazy broken. And I don't think we're at that point yet. There's still a lot of work to do of just like busy work of making everything not incredibly powerful, but I want the archetypes to all have unique fun identities that are empowering to the player first.
Since we're on the topic of chat questions, one
I saw there were a couple
earlier on was I can't find it, but I think it was along the lines of, why are you bullying Boltzlinger? So I guess to rephrase that, what is the direction you're trying to take Boltzlinger in?
Boltzlinger, okay. So
who's this boat person?
It's someone on my head. I just saw that.
Yeah. Okay, so direction of Boltzlinger.
I'm trying to talk about Boltzlinger. The direction I want to take it is horizontal. No. I am so funny, guys. I'm awesome.
So it already confirmed we ain't getting more horizontal. We're just getting vertical. You can't lie to us.
But yeah,
Boltzlinger.
I think Boltzlinger. It's so weird because Boltzlinger's kit feels like it has a lot of cool things already, but also it doesn't have a middle red node. And that bothers me a lot because I don't think anything it currently has around that space feels like a red node. And I'm not like, it used to be Arrow Hurricane and All-Seeing Panoptes, but those are both just damage upgrades to existing nodes, and that's it.
Panoptes, I don't know if you said I butchered that pronunciation, but
I don't know how
that
it's
does not
pronounced.
deserve to be a red node.
Yeah, so like
Absolutely not.
I made it purple because like mainly because I moved Arrow Hurricane and I didn't want to have 2 red nodes for the same archetype on the same page, but Boltzlinger is one that's frustrated me because I feel like there should be something there, but I haven't been able to find like a really good, like an actual strong thing to add to the kit to put there. Because what it has right now is actually pretty good. I think there's a few small things I want to do to it. Something I've talked about a lot in the past is how Geyser Stomp is meant to blind enemies, and we just haven't gotten around to make it do that. And that's been brought up a lot already. Like I've mentioned it multiple times, and it's also how it used to work in like before 2.0. So that would be really nice and actually like a reason to unlock the ability. I think Snowstorm is really underwhelming, and all jokes aside about just make it bigger, forehead until it's good. Like that should probably be something substantial. And also like if it's not going to be substantial, it probably shouldn't be sitting at the bottom of page 7.
I mean, that's why I like the changes to the order of things, because I never liked wasting ability points on Snowstorm, but now I can get All-Seeing Panoptes without getting it. It's great, because it's not that worth it.
I put Snowstorm in a position where like all the archetypes would be able to reach it, but like it's just not good, so it doesn't matter that it's there.
Yeah.
So,
have you seen any good suggestions on, like, have you seen anyone just, like, say some random idea that would be a great red ability for Boltzlinger?
I've seen a couple ideas that feel like they would hit or fit Boltzlinger, but nothing that feels like a big, like, centerpiece for the kit, because it already has, like, Guardian Angels and a gajillion arrows Arrow Storm. And now, like, Shrapnel Bomb got a buff, and it also gets access to Bouncing Bomb. So, like, I almost don't really agree with the take that I've been bullying Boltzlinger. Like, I know we nerfed the damage a few patches ago because it was very, very oppressive at that point. And then we nerfed Frenzy. So maybe, like, having a way to, like...
I think at the same time, Boltzlinger is essentially what Legacy Archer is, right? It's pretty much kind of the same.
Like,
so you've got to... It must be difficult to come up with something brand new, but that also feels close.
We reduced some of the damage from like Arrow Hurricane, but in turn, like I adjusted the element conversion so it wasn't awful for all of the Arrow Storm upgrades. And then now it has access to a bunch of new abilities that give it more power too, like Bouncing Bomb. It can steal Murder Flock from Chopper 2 if you want it. Yeah, like it's way easier to get the like every upgrade for Guardian Angels now.
Yeah, and better damage.
Because Sharpshooter's not in the middle now.
Yeah, and you don't waste ability points on Snowstorm.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, go on.
Yeah. There were a couple other questions we got from chat as well. I saw one that it was a while ago, and I'm not sure if
was this the opening one? I believe.
Yeah. So I don't have like a super satisfying like this will happen or not.
Skins or stuff like that.
Yeah, so someone asked about is it planned for modified spells to have a custom look for the VIP Plus reskins? The class reskins. I think this absolutely should happen. If it were up to me, obviously it's a low priority. It's all cosmetic stuff. But at some point, my personal take, what I would want, this is not confirmed or something we are currently working on, but I would love not only to have reskins for all of the upgrades and not just the base spells. So like Ophanim would look different if you're a Dark Wizard, or Phantom Ray would look different if you're a Hunter, which currently like abilities like that don't. It's only the base spells. But also, my ideal someday would be for the ability tree to have a cosmetic makeover as well. So if you're playing Dark Wizard, the all of the balance and all of the ways the abilities work are exactly the same, but the visuals and the archetypes would have different theming. So instead of being a light bender, you would be like a void dancer or something, and it would be like, and you'd have like,
what
like
a great name,
purple purple ophanim orbs with Wynnic runes on the sides, and like it would just be like all thematic.
Yeah,
but it would make Darkweaver. Someone just said in chat, like something that
Dancer sounds a lot like Riftwalker, I think, more than like Bender.
That's the tough part. But like, I think there is so much unique space there to have the reskins have more visual flair. Right now they don't have, just because I assume it was time constraints coming in, like super low priority to spend a bunch of time making new models and textures and particles for just VIP reskins that don't do anything else. But having more thematically unique elements to the reskins at some point when there's more pressing issues to work on would be super sick. That's what I would love to try.
So if everyone
you
here
heard
in chat...
of Lightbender, now get ready for Darkstrader. That's awesome.
That's a good chat message. Or like summons from Summoner being different mobs.
Yeah, like they could be different things if you're playing a Skyseer, and like if you're Hunter, then Tropper could have different beasts. Like you could have an Ocelot instead of a Hound, maybe. I don't know. Would it make sense for an Ocelot to run around and drag things towards the traps?
You should hear my TikTok plans for Call of the Hound ability. I think an Ocelot or a cat would work great, because it's like, do you not have any friends? Well, at least this ability will give you a puppy to play with. Everyone I said that to, they're like, that's so sad. I think it's hilarious.
So unfortunately, it's not something we're working on right now, but it is something I would love to do in the future.
Yeah,
because I think it would be super fun, and I think it's really underwhelming for the reskins to not actually really reskin much now.
Yeah. But on the topic of things you'd want to see, but you don't really have the influence to decide over it, or, it's... if you could add a new class to Wynncraft, what would it be?
So I haven't thought too much about this. If I was to try and like design a class from the ground up, I think I would start... I am game design Andy here. The weaponsmithing profession has 2 types of weapons it can craft, and the woodworking profession has 3. So the first place we need to start is we need a metal weapon that would go with weaponsmithing, because we don't need a 4th woodworking weapon. That's a really underwhelming place to start, but I think
wood and metal
pre 2.0, I wanted like an axe wielding class, because not pre 2.0, like pre Gavel, like old, I actually wanted a Paladin in this game so bad. Now we have Paladin, but I imagined like Paladins wielding a great axe, or maybe we get something that wields a flail and you get like a unique melee attack like that.
That would be something. Or I don't know, it's like a super old like OG like suggestion that was on the forums like probably like 7 years ago, but like axe thrower. Like a ranged.
Also, I remember like Selvet's old like class suggestion. I don't even remember what it was called, but it was like pre-Gavel, and it was Soldier, I think is what it was called, and that one was neat. I had my own general suggestion of a class way back. It was probably 8 or 9 years ago at this point, and I think the thread is gone because of the forum wipe. Like, that's how old it is. Yeah. But I wanted a Zephyr class that was like an airbender, and this is pre-Gavel, pre-resource pack. So Mage had a stick, Warrior had a shovel, and Zephyr was going to use a glass bottle. I was inspired by the Gust jar from the Legend of Zelda Minish Cap for the Game Boy Advance.
I've never played that.
I wanted it to have like all of its spells had like cool mobility and knockback. So like even your damaging spell was like a vertical jump and did AoE around you and stuff. Yeah. And I feel like we actually, I mean, that's literally Whirlwind Strike. right? Like I didn't work on the ability tree designs like coming into 2.0. It was pretty much all salted, but Zephyr, my little vision from when I was like 13 or 14, it kind of exists as Battle Monk and Acrobat now, which I think is fun.
Someone in chat said, I want Druid. What's the difference between Druid and Shaman, though?
That's what I was thinking. Like, Druid sounds like... Here's my take. Druid sounds like a reskinned archetype for Skyseer.
Yeah.
Like, Druid
exactly.
sounds like the reskin of either, like, Ritualist. Probably Ritualist. Because Druids in, like... I'm pretty sure Druids in D&D can, like... They have, like, a shapeshift thing. I don't remember what it's called. But, like...
Someone said that in chat.
So you have the... Ritualist is the stance change archetype with the masks. You could thematically change that into like transformations and call it Druid for Skyseer. That's what I would do, because I think Druid as like a base class is too similar to Shaman. Just like thematically.
That's the tricky thing with like a new class on Wynn, right? Because there's 3 archetypes that gotta go with it.
Yeah,
that all gotta be unique.
It was way
like,
easier to conceive of like a new class before 2.0 because each class's scope was so much smaller.
Because like if you look at a list of like MMO RPG classes, right, actual like MMO games, right, they all have like a Paladin class or like an Alchemist class, and it's like, okay, like a Paladin, that's under Warrior now. Alchemist, it has its potential, but what are 3 things you can make unique for an Alchemist? Like,
Alchemist potions. Is another one that sounds like an archetype almost.
Yeah, exactly.
Alchemist is, am I allowed to say this? Alchemist is an archetype, not an archetype, a class on Monumenta, right? We don't want to just duplicate what that.
I would not know.
Yeah, I've never played, so I have no clue.
Alchemist,
what they have.
Alchemist. Okay, this is a throwback. If we're gonna mention other servers, it doesn't exist anymore. Who remembers Zentrella? It existed for like 4 months or whatever.
I played for like 5 minutes and then just watch it die.
Didn't it have an alchemist class where you had a throw, like a splash potion as your weapon?
Exactly. Yeah, it did. And then it had like a Reaper, which was like essentially a vampire.
Yeah, didn't it use a hoe as its weapon?
Yes. Because I played Reaper.
Yeah. I thought Zentrella was gonna be something.
Oh, I was afraid it was gonna be something.
That's true.
I like watching other MMOs die before Wynncraft's might, you know. It's what
we take down all that dare to challenge us.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, like Reaper, but like that's the tricky thing, because I used to think like pre-Gavel almost. I always used to like draw up my own ideas of like a new class, but now it's like, how can you, like, each class has to be unique, but it also has to have 3 unique subclasses, essentially. Like, archetypes, they're subclasses, right? Like, how, you gotta come up with something really good that's good on its base, but also have, like, 3 subclasses that are good.
It would be really interesting, like, it would be a kind of a brand new challenge to build a class from scratch now that 2.0 is the standard, because the other 5 classes started before the archetypes, and so you got like the most basic vision of a class with its 4 base spells before 2.0, and then some small upgrades, and then you got to 2.0 and you kind of got to expand off of that base idea. And so like you look at some of the archetypes that are like kinda just the base class but more, like Archer, not as much, but like Boltzlinger is somewhat, and then you get like Riftwalker is like old mage but with more, and you get like Shadestepper is probably
it's probably like
Trickster actually,
because it's like old mage, and I wasn't really a fan of old mage.
Trickster is probably the closest to old assassin because you use spin attack as your damage spell.
But Bamboozle,
and then like Paladin is really old warrior, like because you get back like a lot of its old tanking potential that it lost in 2.0.
Except uppercut,
but you kind of have all the base spells and that's it. Sag. So if you were to build a new class now, like you almost need to have a vision of what the base class is before the archetypes without ever actually having that be a part of the game for years beforehand, which it would be challenging. It would be really cool though.
That sounds like a fun and like
oh my god
Discord competition or something, like doing like a class competition, like everyone like suggests your own class, even though like it wouldn't be put in the game obviously, but it would be fun to see what people could come up with.
Get people to balance the game to judge it, and then like winner gets like LE, or like I don't know, they sometimes do like giveaways where the winner gets like VIP or something. I don't want to derail too much.
It would be like a bunch of work, so like you'd have to like champion rank or something.
I want to interject because we talked about this earlier. Someone in chat says maybe a bard class.
Yes, I was about to say that. I forgot to mention it. If I would love a bard class, dude. I'm a musician. I am such a nerd for music.
No, don't like, do this to me, Xavier. Okay, don't do this to me. Okay, don't go here saying you want a bard class, because you won't rename ritualist abilities that don't have a thematic sense to them to limerick. Okay, they're supposed to be called limerick of whatever. Okay, not just totemic shatter. Call it limerick of the fanatic. Okay, don't go here saying you care about music and then don't name it limerick. No, you're dude, if it's gonna be on the theme. No.
Shaman is like already the bard class. Like, look at how many of those items are named after like music terms.
Yes, exactly. You'd have to rename. Ritualist. Bard class would be funny.
No, we're gonna add a new class. It's called Poet.
Poet. You'd have to type in chat, and if it rhymes, it will do damage.
you have the one that's like, you have the public speaker archetype, you have the performer archetype, and you have like I don't know, what's a third one that's like
the public speaker can only type, like can only do damage with shouts.
You've got the public speaker archetype, the performer archetype, and the essential worker archetype.
Essential worker archetype. Oh man, yeah. But you'd have to type in chat. You'd have to like write. You'd have to write poetry in chat to actually like that would be your spell.
Support.
Someone said like an Linus class, which would not be good. I bet it would basically just
nerd archetype.
No, stop memeing me. Stop.
Linus has the skip quest command spell.
Oh, yeah. Skip cutscene. Yeah, everyone would be playing the Linus class with the skip cutscene.
One of the spells is just a link to the video guide of the quest you're currently doing.
That would be pretty OP.
Then you have like a 1 day or 1 week cooldown on the skipping a quest.
Yeah. Oh wow!
Yeah, you thought Second Chance had a long cooldown. This one is 1 week.
Yeah, you didn't start Ensign's Brother right away. Banned.
Yeah, if you don't do things in the right order, you're not worthy of that class.
Yeah,
you actually just can. Like it just blocks everything that isn't.
You have to play. You have to do things in the order they unlock in the content book as that class.
If you don't, every area that isn't that quest is just area locked. You can't leave the area.
Like in loot runs, that would be hilarious. Like,
there's also
there's also
an archetype that's tutorial. The tutorial archetype, wherever you go, just tells you what you can do.
Yeah, and if you're stuck, if you're stuck in a quest, the guide pets.
The Lord of the Clockways used to be here. There was a mob called Gulam and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. No, but when you so backtracking a little bit, when you mentioned like the metal part, right? Like it would have to be weaponsmithing. You know what that? Yeah, you know what that sort of made me think of. Even though it's like it has metal, but it would be like leather. It made me think of I don't know if you've played Skyrim, but there's these like bandit gloves in Skyrim where if you pick them up, they will like buff your like actual like melee damage.
An unarmed class almost.
Yeah, exactly. Like an unarmed, like literally like brawler type class. You're literally just like punching. And then it could, I don't know what cool archetypes would be.
I almost just think like, if I was thinking of like a brawler, I think that design space, there's a little bit of overlap already because you've got like, Assassin has like the earth, like almost gauntlets and and the thunder like Wolverine claws, which would probably be things that would be more fitting for like a brawler class if it existed. And then also the battle monk archetype, I think, is just like that would be that if it wasn't warrior already.
Yeah, that's true.
Someone had a question. They've popped up a couple times. They asked, can we please have an ability node that makes Galloping Spurs usable? I think they also said perhaps with Paladin. So I guess I would say, what is your opinion on... Is Galloping Spurs the only one that sucks?
Well,
Galloping Spurs already I'll just say about this that I don't think we've had the interview part about this is out yet, but in our interview with Salted, he said that in general, mounts are something that are very questionable part of the game currently. So I think that would just be a band-aid fix to something that
I do
we'll have to see what Salted has to say
in the future.
We'll see what Salted has to say in the video.
I think that Cavalryman is a really cool major ID that could probably go on something else and not really be that harmful, but...
What about a pay-to-win class?
No.
Like literally, like you buy stuff from the store and it levels you up in. Like it's like just type in your credit card number. Spells is like connected to your PayPal directly. No,
I'm
kidding.
It's blood pact, but instead of spending your health, it spends real life money.
It's a bank pact.
Yeah.
This reminds me of a class idea I had but never wrote up because designing a class and putting it on forums takes a lot of time. Yeah. But it was, I think Bart MC is one of he just retired as an item maker. Also really wanted to see a cowboy class with maybe a boomerang or a whip as its weapon. Also possibly the ability to, its movement spell. Well, this is my idea, I don't know about Bart. Yeah. But it would be you'd summon a temporary horse. That's may or may not be tied to your actual horse. Probably not, for the sake of not being pay to win. That would just charge in a direction. Maybe it like does more damage the longer it travels. Something like that.
Moving away from new classes, right?
Yeah.
Instead of like looking into the future, let's look into the past real quick, right? If you could go back in time before 2.0 and be like, Salted, no, wait, whatever, right? The dramatic scene, right? You're slamming up the door, pulling Salted away from the computer.
You don't know what you're about to do.
Yes. What archetype or class would you have done differently if you could? But now it's essentially like...
I have to say Summoner, right? Like... And not like I'm getting peer pressured to say Summoner, but like I think Summoner, especially after the changes I've done, like it's got to be the most underwhelming compared to like what it could be. I think, like Summoner could be so much, and it's right now it is the complete opposite. It's the AFK archetype. So I'd have to say Summoner, and like from the start put a focus on like having more summons and more interactivity from the player, which is something like I want to go back and do once we have time for it. But it would be nice if it was like part of the way there already, where like I like the summons that are there, but it really doesn't actually have that much to work with when you think about it, because the puppets are cool and the effigies are cool, but they both just do what they do after they spawn, and they exist a long time, and they just do it for you. And then aura is the same, and uproot is the same, except it makes summons attack a single enemy if you want, and you get more totems. And like, what else does it get? Shepherd? Like, no one cares about Shepherd. And then it gets stagnation and Nature's Jolt. Like, who cares?
Nature's Jolt.
No, Nature's Jolt's, dude. Olympic using Totem Shatter, then you jump and the Nature's Jolt down. Oh, I love it.
You are the single Nature's Jolt user, okay?
We found him, boys.
Yeah. We found him, the one person who uses Nature's Jolt. I learned recently that Nature's Jolt, that's how I feel about this ability. It doesn't trigger. It doesn't trigger on every jump of Frog Dance. It only does it on the first one.
That's a good point. Damn.
No, Frog Dance is the problem.
Always. Well, they prefer Awakened anyway, so they do take
Delete frog dance. Delete frog dance.
Nature's Jolt should just trigger on every hit of frog dance, and then you get both hits 3 times, and it would help Coward Mask be better and more fun. And like, dude, it's such a wasted opportunity. So that's something I definitely want to.
Or you delete frog
fix.
dance.
No frog dance. I will resign on the spot.
Or you delete Shaman.
No!
I mean, Seer's been promising the deletion of Shaman for like what, a year now?
No, we need engagement. We need engagement
Ever
on this
since
video.
1.19,
So
essentially.
we need engagement on this video. So I'm gonna say we're deleting Assassin.
I mean, everyone's gonna be like, well, I mean, Shade Stepper sucks anyway.
Archer. We're deleting
We're gonna
Archer.
say some stuff that we can clip and put it into short.
The only class that will be left in Wynncraft next update is Mage.
No,
right.
Battle Monk, because that's the one thing people use.
Oh yeah, the only archetype that actually exists for Warrior is Battle Monk. That's just the design of the class already.
Exactly. And Ritualist is the only good one.
So people actually use it.
For context, you can't see the cape, but Xavier has a really cool looking cape that is a Lightbender sigil.
Oh yeah,
I'm not on Windtills. Yeah, I'm not on Windtills with this.
Tragic.
You're not on Windtills? Damn.
Well, I'm using the experimental mod pack, yo. The next overhaul, this is it.
Check out the Alliance Discord.
Yo, you should join the Discord.
But I like my cape.
Yeah. I'm sorry. It's not my fault Windtills hasn't updated. It's not my fault.
It makes me want to design more archetype capes, not gonna lie.
Right?
We should have archetype
Speaking of archetypes, let's see, what question is left? Are we allowed to ask that one, Alliance?
No, there is one you guys had written down about archetypes that I haven't.
No, you can't. Don't leak anything, Xavier. Salted,
I'm not
Salted
leaking
is actually
anything.
Sitting next to Xavier, and he has a gun to his head.
Salted is in my house.
Yeah, I saw you guys. I mean, no. Okay, let's not pretend here, Xavier. Salted is not in your
head and a knife to his throat.
Let's not pretend here. Salted is not in your house. You're in his basement.
No, it's true.
I'm in the room next to you.
In weeks.
Yeah, we all are actually. So please, people, don't get us in trouble.
Please watch the latest TikTok. Please watch the latest TikTok I posted earlier.
We need engagement, please.
please save us. Please, you don't know what they do to us.
How we got it somehow.
You don't need to even send his shorts to anyone. You just copy the link and it boosts the algorithm, guys. It's genius.
Oh my god.
Anyway, the question.
Yeah.
Without leaking anything, will there be new archetypes for each class? Do you see you adding a 4th archetype?
I personally don't see myself adding a 4th archetype anytime in the future to classes for a couple of reasons. It would be a big task, but like, I mean, I redesigned the archer tree layout. Like, I'm fine with taking on a lot. I already do. I am obsessed with this game and put way too much time into it. But I think the problem with adding another archetype is that it would have to deviate from the precedent of how archetypes currently work because of the way that the ability tree itself works. If we've got the 3 routes going down the tree, and we're constrained by Minecraft, where the ability tree is a chest GUI. And so it can only be so wide. I'm sure there are workarounds to that, but right now, if you were to try and like fit in a 4th archetype, some of the trees are already cramped. And we can make more pages, we could make the trees go further down, but we don't have more lateral space to work with.
What about merging archetypes?
If we were to add like another archetype to the classes, it wouldn't be a standard archetype. It would have to be something like scattered across the tree as like the 4th like oddball archetype, like the odd one out. And like you could do something interesting with that, but like, or I feel like you would lose a lot of the cohesiveness that archetypes currently have, which I think is a strength of them.
Or
at the same time, you'd be adding 5 archetypes when instead they could focus that effort into just one totally new class to begin.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's true. Plus, what's the point of adding yet another warrior archetypes that's just a sideline to battle monk?
It's just gonna be battle monk. Yeah, we're gonna add a new archetype. I mean, Salted posted a thread a while ago about like the making of the ability tree, right?
Yeah.
And in that thread there was the proposed like drunken fighting style archetype for warrior. Yeah. But it never really went anywhere. And like, let's add that in, right? But then all that it has that actually matters is like the first ability, and you take that, and then you just say take battle monk with the one ability, and you hybrid, and that's all it is.
Yeah. What about like the later down the page?
It's only constant nausea. That's all it does.
Oh, the Alchemist class that has like a drunken potion. And your attacks have a chance, like mobs basically get agility. They have a chance to dodge stuff, like you missing.
We'll add in an alchemist class and give it a mixologist archetype.
That's write that down. That sounds
good. This is so good.
Who's taking notes?
We're recording
this. It's fine.
All the ability nodes are just like different themed like alcohols from the different cities around Wynn, because I know that there's a bunch of different ones.
Yeah, Samson made a whole post about it, right?
Everyone loves Levengold Pinot, the best one. Oh god.
Careful, I'm gonna get too attached to this idea and want to do something with it.
You know, Alchemist would also be the easiest one to add, surely, because it's essentially, obviously there's the imagination, you can go any direction, but essentially it's just potions with effect. So it's pretty easy if Wynn wanted.
But that doesn't work for weaponsmithing. You're telling me these potions are gonna be made out of metal? We literally have an alchemism.
They would be OP potions. They would be pretty sharp.
Those would be heavy, yeah. The potions.
Wait! He's tricking us, everybody. He's tricking us. It's not potions. No, it's like a metal grenade. It's a metal grenade.
Like it doesn't
with
even
wood pellets in it. It's wood.
It's just
wood
a
pellets.
hunk of metal that just hits them.
Oh man, that would be so funny.
You're just playing shot put, and that's your main attack.
Yeah, but let's be clear, everyone. Right? None of this is like official or like we're just talking in hypotheticals.
Yeah.
I personally know that there's gonna be a cow class, right? And like the way you attack is by like. That sounds too graphic, so I'm not gonna say it. But you use milk as your like attack.
Oh, God.
Well, okay.
Like the salted class.
We are too far gone. We are too far gone.
Okay. Let's backtrack, everybody.
Context.
Yeah. That would be a good short, yo. Yeah. No. There's one more question though that we.
Oh, we didn't ask that question.
Yeah, I know.
What was it? You said so. I don't want to spoil it. Wait. Okay, so
no, I mean like the
one. White nodes, you know, the one ability point, white nodes, guys. The stuff that just boosts stats. So like Burning Heart got removed.
Oh my gosh.
We still have stuff like Dynamic Fate.
Blue disappeared.
This is the saddest day of my life. Okay, I know the question. They were gonna ask about like the removal of abilities such as Burning Heart and Precise Shot, right? Because I removed Burning Heart, I replaced it with Cleansing Breeze. I removed Precise Shot, it got partially replaced by like Coursing Restraints.
Yeah.
Why did I remove these abilities, but then some of the others are there? My position on these nodes is that I don't like nodes that require a certain element or like that not require certain ones that are like Burning Heart only was beneficial to you if you had fire damage. And so stuff like Dynamic Faith, which still exists, I want to remove Dynamic Faith as well. We just haven't gotten to Mage yet, is why it's still there. It's also why I removed Mengdu for Shaman for the exact same reason. And Precise Strikes and Precise Shot are the same issue as well, where you need dexterity and otherwise they don't do nothing for you. Yeah. And I don't think that that's good. Like in my ideal world, I would find a way to design parry and counter to not rely on agility points as well, and just be like a separate function that isn't tied to your skill points. Because I don't think that the archetypes should force you to use a specific build or element in order to get full value. Like, I'm fine with the elemental mastery nodes because they're so minor.
Yeah.
And they're just basically theming and
those are basically
game.
just for people who don't know what to choose. They
Yeah.
like if I'm new and I'm like, oh, what do I pick? But you pick up a fire weapon by coincidence, you'd be like,
exactly.
I'm gonna try Trickster because fire is leading me this way.
Yeah,
but they're not so strict. They're not forcing you.
And that's also why I was going through and adjusting the ratio of like element conversion on a lot of the abilities, because I wanted to make it so things were not so biased towards certain elements. It's like I adjusted Arrow Storm, I adjusted Meteor, I adjusted a couple other things, puppets. I do really like the design of the elemental mastery nodes actually, because I was talking to Salted about them a while back, and the concept behind having the elemental masteries, it's meant to be like a puzzle for the typical new player to solve, right? Because like Lou said, where you've got like a fire weapon and you're going down the tree, if you pick fire mastery, it's not only going to start directing you further down the tree and give you like a passive suggestion on one of the archetypes to try, but also it's a little instant payoff of now you're doing more damage with this weapon that you have because you made the air quote right choice, and little things like that are immediate synergies for the new player to pick up on, make the tree feel more rewarding even early on.
Yeah.
So I like the design of those.
Now we've been talking abilities for a while. But I'm super good at this, you know. I have 9 years of experience. But I want to sort of
Xavier, list your official roles on Wynncraft, because you are not just the ability tree lead. You do a couple other things.
Oh yeah. So I'm a composer, I'm an item maker, I'm the ability tree lead, and I used to actually have a role called helper that I don't have anymore because
You're so
in my
useless.
in my earlier years on the team, I did a few like odd jobs that other people didn't want to do from roles that I didn't have. So there's a couple random things in the game that I'm responsible for. Like I'm doing some work on caves right now. But also previously, my first big update that I was a part of was Corcus. And a couple things I did in that update was I did all of the loot chests on Corcus Island, which is normally a GM job, but it wasn't getting done. I offered to do it. I did it. A lot of those, all the tier 1 and 2 loot chests, with a few exceptions in Corcus, are still the ones that I put there all those years ago. The tier 3s and 4s have changed because caves have changed. And I also built the parkour in Fallen Factory, which is the only thing I've built because I'm not a very good builder, but it's cool that I have like my mark on the game there as well. Yeah, the clock tower with the moving gears.
Oh, the one parkour that I'm not that bad at. I've done it like
I intentionally designed it. Even way back then, I wanted players to explore things and encourage win, because a lot of stuff in Wynncraft, especially back then, was like, we have built this parkour. You will do this parkour. We're going to put invisible walls. We're going to teleport you back. No movement spells. You will engage in this content as intended. And I'm like, I'm going to make this parkour and just have a bunch of moving props. And there's going to be like 19 different routes to the end of each level. And if you want to use your movement spells, go ahead. That's the reason you have them. So yeah,
I'm not sure if I remember
write music,
right,
I do items, I do abilities.
I'm not sure if I remember right, but does that parkour even have carpets? Did you break the number one rule?
I think it has carpets. It's got carpet in front of the elevators that take you between the floors, I'm pretty sure.
I believe there's brown carpets on the spurs,
No, I was wondering, like, has the recent loot run update made you rethink some of the archetypes that might be underutilized in loot running? Because there's a bit of a meta, right, for what people use for loot running, and so that might leave some archetypes in the dust. Shade Stepper.
I think that most of the issues with archetypes that I've like identified and are things that I want to fix are issues that aren't exclusive to loot running.
Yeah.
Like they're issues that show themselves in other content, whether it's fighting a big group of mobs or fighting bosses or doing raids or whatever. But I think the one exception is actually Lightbender, where it's been quite good since release. Specifically, Riftbender Hybrid has been very good in basically all the content the game has, but struggles really hard in loot runs. And that's like the one case where I think I need to think of ways to address that. But all of the other archetypes, I think it's more base like structural issues with the archetypes that are affecting loot runs, but also everything else.
Yeah.
Though there was the interesting case of Summoner where there was a bug with
did you see our short
with attack speed
it was
curses
so funny.
affecting summons? So Summoner had the inverse where it was mediocre but then extremely powerful in loot runs because your puppets turned into machine guns.
Oh, they did that outside of loot runs too. They did that outside.
No way, you're kidding.
Yeah, have you
wait, no, because it was invigorating wave stacked, right?
Yeah. Did you see my short?
About that because my Olympic build could do like I think it peaked at 1.55 billion DPS, which only took I think it was 4.5 seconds to reach.
We
so
shredded
did a short with 3
Greg.
Shaman shredding Greg in like one phase.
Yeah. Didn't even get to
That's
watch.
so funny.
It was hilarious.
Finally, Summoner got to be good for like.
They rolled out faster. They fixed it before we even uploaded it, right? Which is great.
It was fixed like by the time I was publishing it, which
We've
is good.
immortalized the clip there, which is fun.
Yeah,
you
I'm
guys
glad.
should check it out if you haven't seen it already. You
it
can
was
also check
very
out the
funny.
other shorts in the shorts tab
Like,
because there's some
comment,
other
share,
stuff.
spam, click the share button.
But Xavier, is there anything else you'd like to say to the audience or to people who care a lot about builds or the ability tree and the combination of the two of them?
I mean, yeah, thanks for showing up and listening. It's been super fun being on here. I'm super passionate about this. I love talking about the game. I could talk about it for hours. I mean, I already have, and
we love talking to you.
I often will like stay up way too late just talking with people about this game because it's so enjoyable being a part of this. And I appreciate like everyone's been super supportive of me like coming into this position and trying to do my best. And I'm still learning as I'm going. Like I don't have any formal experience with game design. Everything I've learned has been from Wynncraft. And the only reason I'm any good at it is because I've been on the team since 2017.
Yeah.
Or was it earlier? I think it was 2017.
If you worked on Corcus,
10.
If you worked on Corcus, that came out April 2017, April 17th.
Yeah, it was 2017 then, or maybe really late 2016. Not 100% sure. Long time. But I appreciate everyone is super passionate about this game. I love talking with you guys. I love hearing everyone's feedback, and every little bit helps. Like. I can't do a good job at this without everyone else who actually plays the game and experiences the stuff that I work on and that everyone else on the team works on. So thank you.
Yeah, we really appreciate you coming on. We love talking to you. We love talking abilities with you because you're super enthusiastic about it, and you know it better than everyone. Because you do
I'm just the guy with the Trello and the spreadsheets and too much time on my hand.
Oh my God, I'm getting you on Trello immediately after this stream.
I've just got a hyperfixation and a dream. All right.
Yeah. We really appreciate you coming on. And also to the audience, everyone watching, we're really happy you guys tuned in. There's been way more than I expected for like the first episode, so I'm really glad we got so many people tuning in. Obviously,
thank you everyone who gave us questions as well, by the way.
Yes. And obviously, we're going to be doing these more in the future. We have a lot of ideas on guests and people and topics, but there's a channel in my Discord called Suggestions, where if you want to, there's a post where you can write in if there's a topic or a specific person from the content team or someone known in the community that you might want to see on here. We're open to suggestions, but like I said, we have our ideas. But yeah, the podcast will be up on the playlist available for you guys to watch through. And if you want to quote us out of context to infer random things we didn't intend to, please do that, because that's still views. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been a pleasure. Thank you to my co-hosts Lou and Blue for helping me with this, and thanks to my other moderators like Hot Dog for helping with the stream. Anyways, this has been a pleasure. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We certainly did. At least I did. I hope everyone else did too. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. We'll be back. Yeah.